everyone, and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my worst to best album series. I have already done one of these about Marilyn Manson and I really enjoyed doing that, so today I thought I would challenge myself and tackle the Pink Floyd catalogue. This was quite difficult for me because Pink Floyd are one of my favourite bands in the whole world and they have quite a big catalogue and it's very unique. So obviously I'm going to share my ranking with you today and I'm sure that it will be controversial in some way. As always, I'd love to know what you all think, so please do comment your lists down below and we can have a nice little chat in the comments. So I'm going to be ranking the 15 Pink Floyd studio albums today. As I said, please give me your list in the comments and let's not waste any more time and let's just get started. So in 15th place, and in my opinion the worst Pink Floyd album, is 1969's Ummagumma. I've watched a few of these ranking lists and it seems to be a general consensus that this is the worst album by Pink Floyd. The first 4 tracks on the album are live versions of Careful With That Axe Eugene, A Saucer Full of Secrets, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun and Astronomy Don't Mind, which I quite enjoy, but the rest of the album is just kind of nonsense to me. It's very self-indulgent and a bit weird, but not in a good way. It kind of sounds like they recorded it not really intending anyone else to hear it, so yeah, it's a no from me. Moving on is 1969's album More. Now this is technically a film soundtrack which was written for a film with the same name, which I haven't seen, so I can't comment on. But yeah, this album is okay. It has a few forgettable songs as you would expect from a film soundtrack, but the songs that are good are actually quite good. It's not really one that I listen to very often, but when I do listen to it, I enjoy the Nile song and Green is the Colour, and I actually like the song Cymbeline so much that I named my Animal Crossing island after it. So I don't know what that says about me. Next up in 13th place is the latest release from the Floyd. It's 2014's The Endless River. This was the first album after Rick's death and it is basically just a load of instrumental tracks based on material they recorded during sessions for The Division Bell. This is an okay album. I don't listen to it a great deal, but sometimes I will have it on in the background if I'm just doing stuff around the house. So I do believe it has its place in Pink Floyd's discography. I mean, I don't really know what else I can say about it. It's just The Endless River, like it's just there. It's just there, isn't it? So that has got the slightly crappy albums out of the way, and every album that I'm going to talk about now is an album that I genuinely enjoy a lot. I listen to all of these on a pretty regular basis, so I have tried to rank them, but it has not been easy. In 12th place for me, it's 1987's A Momentary Lapse of Reason. So obviously this was the first album without Roger and you can definitely feel his absence. Lyrically it's not as strong as the previous albums, but musically I think it's beautiful. There's some great David Gilmour guitar solos and I just think it's a really enjoyable listen. I really love the song Learning to Fly. I know that's quite controversial, a lot of people don't like that song, but I just love the chorus. I think it's so melodic and catchy. And yeah, I just think the album has a really nice vibe to it. And I also think it gave us a good idea of what was to come from the following album, The Division Bell, which, spoiler alert, I love. So next up in 11th place, it may be quite controversially, is 1983's The Final Cut. This was Roger's last album with the band and probably the one that he had the most influence on. It's something of a concept album and it has quite a lot of politically charged anti-war lyrics, which I'm actually quite a fan of. I've heard a few people say that this album is a little bit over the top, but I personally love how dramatic and passionate the lyrics are. I mean, it pretty much sounds like a Roger solo album, but the vocal delivery is really powerful and the production is great. Some of my favourite songs are The Post-War Dream, Southampton Dock and When the Tigers Broke Free, which is an absolutely heartbreaking song. Okay, next up I'm going to talk about 1972's album Obscured by Clouds. I think this album is often overlooked because of what came after it, but I think it's actually a really great, nice, chilled album. The songs are quite short, which was unusual for the Floyd, and there's a lot of acoustic guitar going on. The production is one of my favourites as well. It's so crisp and clear, and in my opinion, every song brings something to the table. Some are better than others, obviously. My favourites are Burning Bridges, Stay, and obviously What's the Deal. But there aren't any complete clunkers. And now I'm going to talk about 1970's Atom Heart Mother. Hot and Hot Mother only has 5 songs on it, but the opening track is 23 minutes long. The album is full of really weird experimental sounds. It's very progressive rock, which I like, and it has these great big like horn sections which are cool. Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, the album closer, is a really decent song, and it has a nice little jolly piano section about a minute and a half in, which I'm obsessed with. Overall, this album is just really unique and different, and it's definitely one I would recommend listening to if you haven't. Okay, now we're getting serious. Coming in at 8th place is Pink Floyd's debut. It's 1967's The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. For me, this is psychedelic rock at its best, and it just shows how much former member Syd Barrett brought to the band. I know this album isn't everyone's favourite, but I love it. I listen to it all the time. The instrumentals on this album are crazy good, especially on the opening track. It's just full of really cool and wacky ideas. Some of my other favourite songs are Flamin', Scarecrow, and of course Bike. Bike was actually the first Pink Floyd song I ever heard. My dad showed it to me when I was very young, and obviously I didn't really understand, but now I get it and it's a banger. So next up is the album that followed The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It's 1968's A Saucer Full of Secrets. It was really close between the two for me. I love both these albums so much, but there's just one song in particular that gives A Saucer Full of Secrets the edge for me. And that song is Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. I just love that song so much. It's the only song with all 5 members of Pink Floyd, and it's one of my favourite Pink Floyd songs of all time. I love it. I love the live performances of that song so much as well, and it really just makes the album for me. I also think this album flows really well. I really like the production, and it just reminds me of a positive time in my life, so that is why it's so high on my list. Sorry, I just really fancy an After 8. So in 6th place is 1971's Medal. I ignored this album for the longest time. I just didn't bother with it. And then my dad told me it was his favourite album of all time, so I thought I'd better give it a listen. And I just completely fell in love with it. Medal is a bit of a transitional album between the super early psychedelic Pink Floyd and the sort of prog rock Pink Floyd that emerged in the 70s. There's 6 tracks on Medal, and I honestly love every song, but I think most of us can agree that the highlight is the closing track, Echoes. Echoes is a 23-minute long explosion of just great music. It opens with that famous ping, and then it builds slowly, and the instruments come in and the vocals come in, and it's just really haunting and atmospheric, and it's just so good. And another one of my favourites on the album is Saint-Tropez. I love how like summery and jolly it is compared to all the other tracks on the album. Okay, so we're in the top 5 now, and this is where it might get a little bit controversial, so I apologise in advance, but it's just my opinion. I know that this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but in 5th place for me is 1975's Wish You Were Here. Don't get me wrong, I love this album, obviously, everybody does, but it just didn't connect with me as much as some of the others from the big 4. Having said that, I love the themes that appear in this album. I love how this is such a beautiful tribute to Syd. Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 to 5 is probably the song that I would just call absolute perfection. I listen to it like every day. The guitar is unbelievable, like genuinely unbelievable. The title track is obviously also a bop and just stunning and beautiful. I mean, what else can I really say about this album? It's a great album, it just didn't connect with me as much as some of the others. Sometimes that just happens. And in 4th place for me is 1994's The Division Bell. I'm aware that not everyone's into this album, and I completely understand and respect that, but it's just always really resonated with me. There are 2 songs in particular that I always listen to when I need a pick-me-up or I'm in a bad mood, and those songs are Marooned and Wearing the Inside Out. Marooned is completely instrumental, and Wearing the Inside Out has this amazing, like, ethereal instrumental section. I love this album as a whole, and I just really appreciate how it sounds from start to finish. I think the connection between David and Rick is really apparent and just makes the album feel special. So now it's time for the top 3, and honestly this was ridiculously close. I love all these albums with my whole heart, and they could all easily be my number 1. I've kind of chosen my number 1 on what I listen to the most. So in 3rd place is 1979's The Wall. I've got a whole video planned about The Wall where I'm going to talk about the concept and the themes, so I won't go into it too much now, but this album is just really special. It's obviously a concept album, so it's best listened to from start to finish with no interruptions. But there are some standout individual tracks, such as The Happiest Days of Our Lives, Young Lust, Empty Spaces, Hey You, and of course Comfortably Numb. It's just iconic. Like, the album cover is the most recognisable probably of all time. I mean, yeah, I can't say enough good things about this album. So in 2nd place I am putting 1977's Animals. I really don't know actually how to begin to put into words how much this album means to me, but I will try. Animals is basically a social commentary on the state of Britain in the 70s, and it uses different animals to categorise the social classes of the time: the dogs, the pigs and the sheep. My personal favourite on the album is Dogs. I love the vibe of it. It's very dark and the synthesizer that's used sounds great, and I think Dogs has some of David's best guitar work, if I'm honest. I also love the song Sheep, especially like the first 2 minutes of it with all the sheep noises in the background. Whew. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Right, so I'm sure you know what I'm gonna say next, and maybe I'm just too mainstream, but my favourite album is 1973's The Dark Side of the Moon. Now, although technically I think that Animals is the better album, I've had to put Dark Side in the top spot just because of the impact that it had on my life. I'll never forget the first time I actually listened to it from start to finish. I don't think I ever listened to music in quite the same way again. I just couldn't believe like how an album could evoke these emotions and make me feel this way, and years later I still feel exactly the same about it. It hasn't aged a day in my opinion. The production is insane. I love all the different themes that are explored. I love the way the songs transition into each other, and this album is home to some of my favourite Pink Floyd songs of all time, one being Money, one being Us and Them, and the other being Time. Honestly, this album is just perfection to me. I don't really know what to say other than it just changed my life. That is why it is here at the top spot, and I have no regrets about that. So there we have it, my Pink Floyd rating. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I would absolutely love for you guys to let me know what you think of my list in the comments. Do you agree with me or not? Also, please remember to subscribe and like the video before you leave, and I will see you very soon for another video. Bye!